Theater Brent here. I just want to tell you guys that this is the second half of our conversation about pre-production for a show. It also gets into how we cast some stuff and what we do with props and costumes and pieces that we find for a show and how we manage them a little bit as well. But also, I would like to mention that we are terrible at PR for things like this podcast or our shows. And so if you have somebody in your life that you know is part of a theater program or that you think would benefit from this podcast, please send it to them and let them know about it. Also, if you go to podcast.brentnorris.net, the home for this podcast is, there's a bunch of buttons over on the right side that'll let you like us on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or anything like that, YouTube even. And it'll also let you subscribe so that every time we put out a podcast, you'll get notified about it, which will also help us move in the rankings a little bit and let more people find the content that Jennifer's producing. Thanks. And now back to Jennifer talking about pre-production.
So, all right, you've got a production analysis, you've got a calendar, you've doubled up on characters if you need to, and you've sent that information and the descriptions of the characters out to your students, and you've sent out an audition form. And we can also send you or link to you a copy of audition form. I use Google Classroom for this. It is a magical thing if you're not currently on there. And I make a form like a quiz, and it has very basic questions like the kid's name, their grown-up's name, emergency contact number, because it'll be faster to have it on a spreadsheet than to get onto the computer if there is an emergency during practice. We've only had a couple of those. One involved a slap bracelet. And we did have to contact parents very quickly and call EMTs, but everyone is fine, and that kid can feel most of his finger. So you should outlaw slap bracelets in your program and in your building and in the world, because who knew they could do so much damage? What else? You asked them to list what characters they might like, one or two, so you kind of get a feel for, do they want a larger part? Do they feel comfortable with a smaller part? Is there a part they're really feeling? And then they can come in later if they want to auditions and do a prepared piece from that character if they want to. And then there's a question where you can click boxes for what tech crew you'd like to be part of, costumes, props, set, hair, makeup, publicity, light, sound, et cetera, et cetera. If you'd like to be a crew chief, that's one of the questions on there. Do you want to be in charge, or do you not feel comfortable doing that yet? There's a question about, would you be willing to dye your hair or cut your hair, depending on a character? Are you willing to kiss somebody on stage? This particular show, there is no kissing, but we did Midsummer Night's Dream last year, and there's 3 couples that get together. Well, there's 4, but that 4th couple doesn't. 5, but one couple doesn't last the whole show, unless you saw the ballet version at Shakespeare in the Park in Louisville this summer, and then they did stay together the entire show, and I kind of liked it that way, and I wish I'd done that, but that ship has sailed. I'm not redoing that show right now. And what I have found is that the boys are primarily, yes, I will kiss anybody. And the girls are like, I don't know, man. It depends. So we have to work through that. I'm not going to put a kid up for a major role when kissing is important. The romantic chemistry is important if they've made it very clear that they're not doing that thing. What other questions are on there? The conflicts. And then if they want to upload something to show me something else, some other information, or that they like. Sometimes kids have sent me set designs that they've done on paper. Or they've got a Pinterest page they've made about the costumes, or here's some hair and makeup ideas for your villain characters in your show or whatever. And so they can do that as a supplemental as here, or a video of themselves doing something. We've gotten those sometimes. When we do the musical, because those kids aren't all in my school and I don't know them, I more often get videos of younger kids performing in other venues where I haven't seen them. And that's helpful just to kind of get a read on people, especially this early in the year, because I don't know all of these students that well. And some of them I will never learn their names because I'm so bad with names, or I will never spell them properly. That's okay. And then I send that out, and then you give the kids a couple of days to get that done. And once they fill that out, you can make it into a spreadsheet. So you can sort that however you want. You can sort it by, here are the people that want the lead. Here are the people that want to do costumes. Here are the people that want to be tech crew chiefs. And you can look at that information very quickly. And then I print that out and make notes and that kind of thing. Now, does everybody get what they said they wanted on the audition form? No. Do some people get put into positions of authority or become crew chiefs that maybe didn't ask for that? No. But I will go and talk to that kid and tell them, I know you can do this. I need you to do this. And 9 times out of 10, they do deliver. They get it together and they do what I need them to do. It's really amazing to me all these years that I've said to kids, I think you can do this, when maybe they thought they could not do it, and then they did it. And they did it better, whatever they did, their onstage part or their crew part or whatever they were doing, their student directing, better than I thought they'd be able to do it at the end. But I never told them that. I just said, you can go and you can do this. And then they do. And I mean, magic. I think I've said that in every episode. Like, this is all magic, and they're so impressed with themselves, and then they can go on. Sometimes they literally go on to do other things they were too scared to do before because we told them that they could, and they did. So we don't want to set anybody up for failure. I'm not going to put it in a position where I think they can't do it. Do they sometimes not live up to their potential? Sometimes, but mostly I would say 95% of the time. I think that's a fair number, that they live up to their potential.
That's probably really true. I mean, we have a lot of kids that will, well, no, we have our kids that are gonna not live up to their potential. You know it, but also like sometimes they can not live up to their potential right up until the day before the show, and then you're like, listen, if you don't get this together, like we're gonna put a kid up there with a script or whatever, and then for the most part, they tend to get it together. We've had a handful of kids that you're just literally like, no, we can't, you cannot be on the stage. Goodbye.
Yeah.
And one of the kids he was such a great kid. He got bounced out of the show and then showed up to watch the show and was just like praising everybody and loving the show and like, man, this is so great.
That
Man,
was surprising.
you could have been in this, like,
Yeah, like before the show, he was like, "No, I cannot physically do this. I cannot do this." And it wasn't his first rodeo either. And so we put a kid on stage who did a good job with the script on stage. We have had some students who, in 24 hours, have been off book and in the show. Going all the way back to The Crucible, at Romeo and Juliet. We had a kid get arrested that was in Romeo and Juliet the very first time we did it. And I saw a kid in the hall. His name was DJ. And I was like, hey, what are you doing first block? And we were on block then. He said, I have social studies. So I would be a social studies teacher. And I was like, can I have this kid for like a week so he can be in Romeo and Juliet? And the teacher said, yeah, he's making an A. He's fine. So he went to my class for like a week, and he was the Paris. He was the guy that Juliet's parents wanted to marry. And that boy was off book like in 24 hours. He did get stabbed in the eye during one of the shows when he has to fight Romeo in the tomb, but he survived. He's doing quite well now. He's one of my favorites because they're all my favorites, right? The Crucible, we had a kid that he ended up having to be one of the judges. And he came in and just like shuffled the judge's paperwork. One year we had a girl who I knew had brain surgery the year before, but she showed up for drama and she seemed fine. And she had to take on, she was in one show that she learned all the lines for. A girl quit school and took off the week of the other show. And she was a director, so she had a script she could play with sometimes. And this girl, I can see her face, Brooke, her name is Brooke.
Davis. It's Brooke Davis.
Well, it was Brooke Davis. I think she's a different last name now. I think she's married now. And she came in and did the whole other part, and it was great. And then I got a message from the office saying that that kid, based on her IEP, could not be asked to memorize things. And I was like, well, that ship has sailed. And she was amazing. And she said, you believed in me. And so I did it. And she did. She was great. And she's so great. She has the best smile. So if you believe, I believe until they're like, they physically aren't there anymore. Once in a while we throw one out, but mostly it's because they physically go away for some reason. I think we've had 2 kids arrested. One of them was in the box. He was the sound guy for a show that got arrested. But that's been a long time. Like, because we were still, yeah, that's been a long time ago since that happened. It was like the second or third year. That was Miss Nelson is Missing, with a show where I gave myself a concussion and cut my head open. But I'm fine now, really. All right, so we've got the audition form. And then when the last thing you do before you go to auditions, since you have this list of what you want the characters to have, the kids know what it is, whatever, is you want to come in with some sides. And I don't know why they're called sides, but it's just a scene from the script that you want the kids to read. So all my kids have their own scripts, but a lot of times in other programs, they make photocopies and they don't give out the sides and they don't give out scripts until after the show is cast. But since I know everyone's going to be in the play, I go ahead and give everybody a script as soon as I get them. And it's like Christmas morning. They're just hysterical and they're writing their names on it, looking through stuff and whatever. So you would pick scenes from this show that you want to have them read. So you want to pick scenes where people have to do something uncomfortable, like talk in a weird voice or move in a way that is not how average people move, or you have to check chemistry. People are supposed to be best friends or romantically involved or arch nemesis or a parent and a child or brothers or whatever, like how do they play to each other physically. And then Thomas talked last week about doing improv in auditions, which I thought about doing and then forgot about it for this show, but I maybe I will remember to do it for next time because that's a great idea. Oh, and one more thing about before auditions that is not, I don't think most people do, but I did hear this somewhere, so I didn't make it up myself. Is you I don't wait and do the read through when the show is happening. I do it beforehand, which I think we talked about a little bit last week. And then you just go around a circle and everybody reads a line. So everybody gets to hear themselves and they get to play with the script a little bit and ask questions, start thinking, oh, I know how to make the posters they need for this play, or oh, I know how to costume this character. Oh, I want to be this girl because she does this thing and I can do that. And then you go audition. And the first day, you let them bring what they have. So if kids have memorized pieces, sometimes they have a buddy and they get on stage and they do a scene, you let them do that until you run out. And then I do cattle call. We can
I
add
will
something.
say, like this year, because she had jury duty, we had a day where I was just kind of, I wasn't really auditioning the kids. They just had scripts, and I was kind of running them through almost like a mock audition. So we started on that day. The particular script that we have has a line in it and people talking in the line. And so I just lined everybody up in a giant line and just
Like a
started.
physical line
Yeah, like a
where they
physical.
say
Yeah.
lines.
It's so meta. Um, and so I lined everybody up and just had them start doing the lines. And basically we made the line out of everyone that felt like they were this one character were on the left side, and everyone that felt like they were this other character were on the right side. And so the two characters met in the middle. We would run lines with those two people, and then they would go to the ends of the line, and then there would be two new people, and they would just
Try
work
it
that
out.
way. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So we went through everybody that way. So everybody had practiced the line and worked with, and I gave them plenty of time, and then I set them all back in the audience, and I said, because we'd already done the circle read through at that point, and I just told them, I said, if there's any character in this play that you feel like speaks to you, like that you identify with, or you feel like you understand, or you feel like, you have some idea about how they should move or talk or whatever, go on stage with your script. And then I just called one of them and said, okay, tell me what character you feel like is you, or, that you want to. I
Try
guess
it
it's
out
an
for.
audition, but it wasn't really an audition because I wasn't taking any notes and I wasn't making any marks about it or anything like that. But it gave them a chance to sort of, I like to work that character a little bit. And then when I told them when the class was over, I said, listen, tomorrow she's going to ask you if you want to get up and do something related to any of these characters. And now you already have had a chance to be in their skin for just a minute. Go home and think about it a little bit more and work on it a little bit more. When you come in tomorrow, you'll have an opportunity to do it. And I felt like, and I think you even said something to me about the fact that we had a lot more participation for kids being like, yes, no, I have an idea about this. I like,
So,
because
some of
she,
these kids had never auditioned for anything before,
right.
so I think that was probably helpful for them.
Yeah, because I mean, again, we're sort of beating this into the ground, but we have a very, very young class. So I felt like that was a good way to sort of break the seal a little bit because we have a lot of kids that are very personable and like outgoing and stuff like that, but they're just all like, well, I don't know if this is okay, or I don't know, I don't trust myself to make this voice, or I don't trust myself to read this line. And so just having them go up there and go through it once, I really do feel like it sort of broke it up a little bit.
Yeah.
And it was a day we were going to lose anyway because I I'm not authorized to cast a play on my
Do you want to
own.
cast a play?
No, it's fun.
Not
So
authorized. You want to do it.
she says that she always casts the play correctly, but I know
Yep.
that if I cast the play, that I would definitely cast it incorrectly according to her.
I would not say anything. There
Out
would be
loud.
facial expressions and noises probably of displeasure, but that's okay. You're good at other things I don't know how to do,
Yeah.
so it works out just fine.
But I do feel like I said, that wasn't a day that we really lost. So I felt like it was a good use of our time to sort of break this, like I said, to break the seal on
Did
that.
you do any side coaching?
There were a couple of the kids that when they got up there, I was like, okay, I see what you're doing, but like, what about if you did this a little bit?
Yeah.
Or, hey, you're interested in this part, so like, there's this part in the script that it's not maybe necessarily where you're reading where this character does this. So, I mean, I don't know, I didn't spend a ton of time on each one of them. It also did help that several of them wanted to do scenes where there was somebody else in the scene. So
Yeah.
we would drag somebody else back up and then they would kind of work together. That was actually where I saw a lot of the stuff that a couple of the different kids could do because they just sort of got like, okay, you're this character now. And they had to sort of make that up on the spot and they
Right.
didn't do bad at it.
Right.
And I mean, a little bit, we talked about it when they were in the line, like, and stuff like that. So I don't know. It was a little bit of an audition for auditions maybe or something like
A
that.
pre-audition
Yeah.
audition.
Yeah.
I like it. So let me do the cold call, and then I do, or the not the cold reads. Let them do their prepared reads, and then I cattle call, and that's where I might say everybody who's interested in playing a male character or a female character, or anybody who's interested in kissing somebody or whatever, get on stage. But because this show is so wide open, and there's gender is not important to the show in a way it would be in like I don't know, a rom-com or something. Or like As You Like It, where you have a girl pretending to be a boy, pretending to be a girl who would have been played by a boy, but that's a different podcast. Then I would say everybody get up, and then I would look at these characters, I look at these actors and think, I mean, people tell you that appearance doesn't matter. It does. When you're doing theater, what you physically look like matters. It makes you suited for some parts more than others. When I was doing shows like in high school or whatever, but not in college, I always was the mom. Like I always got cast as the mom, even when I was like, when I was 13, I got cast in the mall as one of the moms in our town because I looked like I was much older than I was. Some kids skew older, some kids skew younger. And like I said earlier, there's a kid in this show that's supposed to be very, very young. So if you are 6.5 feet tall and you have a beard, you're not going to play that part. I mean, there is a part for everybody, but not everybody is for every part. And I'm all for gender blind casting, but I think, especially when you're dealing with audiences who aren't necessarily the kind of people that go to theater all the time, where all the theater that they get, and more so in like Shakespeare plays and more serious plays, like the one about Alice. I can't remember that where they killed Jacob Bolton. That play was very serious. Or Thank You for Flushing My Head in the Toilet and Other Real Use Expressions. That one's pretty serious and really good. But I don't want to do it again because it was so good. Where you want to give the audience as many visual cues as possible. So if I'm supposed to believe these people are kin to each other, they look vaguely similar somehow. We did a show called Oddly Puddle is from Outer Space or Inner Space, one of the two. And it was about a kid on the spectrum who was nonverbal. And the way the show was set up, the first half took place when he was like 11, and it was him and all the neighbor kids and a tutor that worked with him. And then the second half, after intermission, was all the same characters, but they were like 17. So we had to cast two sets of kids that you could tell that some of them were older versions of the other one. Because my kid was so little, he played one of the little kids. And the other kid that played him had to be like 6.5 feet tall because my kid was already so tall as a freshman. So your visuals do matter. So I'll look at these kids in this group and say, which of these kids would I believe is Bat Guys, one of the characters of the show? And I just tell them, I said, you can try to figure out what I'm thinking. I don't think it'll do you any good, but if you want to do that, that's fine. And because I ask you to sit down doesn't mean I don't like you. It means that this is not a part I want to see you for, or I've already got a part for you. I don't need to see you anymore. So I don't want them to take it as some kind of like disrespect or that I don't like them or they're not a good actor. That's just not what I'm physically looking at. And so we might do 3 or 4 cattle calls so I can look at there was a grandparent character and this little kid character, and there's this giant security guy, and there's Batman and the clown, and who's clearly supposed to be the Joker. So I just want to physically look at them, and then I will have kids do cold reads from that, where it's like, well, here's a scene from Batman with Batman or Bat Guy and the clown. So we'll put all the kids I think might be Bat Guy over on stage right, and all the kids I think might be the clown on stage left, and then they just pair up and come to the scene. And sometimes when that's happening, I'll have them switch and they go, oh, well, maybe that kid could be the clown instead. So I don't know. I'm just taking notes, and I try to take notes online, but it is much easier for me to write things down. Although, frankly, I can't read about a third of it when I get done writing it down, but make notes and highlight things and put stars by things. And so we do that the first day, maybe the second day. And then after the second day of auditions, I go home and I precast the show. Like I think, okay, if this is the last day of auditions, what did I like? What I think would work? I give everybody a job and I double check to make sure I haven't skipped a kid, because that's happened a couple times, and that is terrible for that child because I think I forgot about them. But I'm just really bad with names. And then I will make this list. And then the last day, I'll come back and say, listen, if there's anything else you want to show us. And then I will look at these kids who I think belong in these parts and see how they work together with other kids in those parts. And I think this time I maybe switched 4 kids around. After I did the precast, I think I switched 4 kids around. So it was pretty much what I wanted it to be after that second day. And that's how I do it. So do it.
I also think it's funny that she said that sometimes your body has to make you a certain thing. When one time she cast a 5'2" kid as the twin of a 5'11" or 6-foot kid, and they like, it was great because we just sort of dressed them the same, and everybody was just like, ah, yes, they're twins.
But also because those two boys spent so much time together, their physicality was very similar.
I'm talking about Sarah and Fresno.
No, that was also fine. It was totally fine. No, it wasn't Fresner, because Fresner was the girl that Ian was hitting on. It was Sarah and Key.
Oh.
It was
There was one time where it was Sarah and Fresner. I don't remember what it
that
was.
was a different show. That wasn't Comedy of Errors. I don't know. I mean, I believe that's a thing.
Yeah.
Was it a show where Sarah didn't play evil? Because Sarah always played evil,
Yeah,
chaotic, or chaotic neutral at best.
Right. So yeah, I mean sometimes, and also like, the play we're working on right now, we're basically gonna have a person be She-Hulk probably. So you don't want to cast a 5'1" She-Hulk unless it's funny.
We do have a really tall dwarf.
Because then if it's funny,
yeah,
like
if it's clear that you've made this, you've gone against type
right
on purpose.
Our She-Hulk's gonna look a lot like She-Hulk though, I think.
I don't know if she can do that, because she's got to be. We may have to do something else with that, because that kid's got to be. She's in the movie panel, and I don't know if we can change the makeup up that fast. So I don't know. Maybe we can do that for some other time, or she can do it for Halloween. That kid would make a good She-Hulk, though. I found out today I taught her mom. I don't think she looks like her mom. I didn't know who her mom was. Found that out today. That was cool. All right, so that's how we audition, and then like I said, we cast that play and put it online the night before, and we started blocking today, and it went. Nobody was hysterical in tears, so winner, chicken dinner. And also, one of the things you got to learn in the world is how to deal with disappointment. And I understand being upset because you didn't cast in a play, but also, you got to move on. So we got to teach resilience, right?
So the premise sort of this episode was the idea of all the work that you do before you cast the show.
Uh-huh.
So how often, once you start making the production document, do you feel like you have to go back and do large scale revisions to it?
So with like the props and the costumes,
Sure.
So there is one of the colors on there for the blocking. It says, we don't want to do this anymore. Forget this idea. And that is a live document. So all the kids have access to it. So like I said to Kyle today, this girl needs a clipboard with a bunch of paper she can shuffle through. Add that to the thing. I know Michaela, the stage manager, has added several things to it already. She's added all the posters and stuff we needed. So that's
one
document.
One thing our stage manager did really quickly after she gained access to the document was she triaged all the whose problem this is, like really fast. Like, because you released it and then she was just going through it, and you're like, because like as you were talking about it, you're like, wait, what are some of these colors? And they were colors that she had added that were like Michaela's problem, costuming problem. Like she had triaged a lot of the tasks.
Yeah, she's great. I think that this is something that she might like to do as a career. She's looking to go to college to major in this. And I really want to help her do that because if you want to be a professional in theater, I think, and this is from my own personal experience with my own children and just looking around, that tech is the way to go because listen, I love actors, the day is long, but they're a dime a dozen. But if you've got somebody, because when my tech kids, they've got to be competent. I don't have time to sit and hold their hands and be like, did you put that light cue in? Do you have that prop? They have to have it done. Or they have a crew they can delegate to and say, okay, you're in charge of all the food. Or there's a big scene with a whole bunch of craft projects. There's going to have to be a prop kid who just takes care of all that craft stuff because we have to keep every time we do the show, we have to keep making that craft over and over again. So we have to have lots of different sets of those in different levels of production. And we have to cut somebody's hair. So we need to find a bunch of hair and then figure out how to glue it onto styrofoam, which will be fine because that's a prop kid's problem. It's not my problem anymore. That's the great thing. I write these things on the production document, on the production analysis, and then I'm like, well, wash my hands of that. A child will figure out how to do it. And they do. If you just let them go, if you trust these kids, then they really just come up with the best ideas. And then I don't have to stress about, like, well, there's 40,000 different boxes on this production analysis. How will I get all these costumes and prop things together? And I'm here to help, and Brent helps, and Brent's wife, Pauline, makes these amazing costumes. And we have Mr. Christian, the art department director, who he makes beautiful things for us, and his students make beautiful things for us. He made a cake last year that a kid could jump out of to sing a song. I mean, a massive, like 3-tiered cake on wheels, because all set pieces should be on wheels. It was just so much cooler than I could have made. I don't know how to do that, right? So I just love to be like, goodbye, little problem.
I will say, like,
You will say that everything should be on wheels.
no, this is the part of the production that stresses me out more than anything else. Like, I've worked with Jennifer long enough that I know that she's good about breaking these things all into little pieces and then farming them out. And oftentimes a lot of the work gets done and then she triages the stuff that doesn't get done. And then there's a list, like, eventually, like, over time through the production, there are times when she comes to me and she goes, okay, we have to do this right now. And then that's when I go and, like, figure that part out. Although I try to think about things ahead of time. But the thing that she's talking about with the 40,000 boxes and everything has to be this way and we need all these things and how are we going to do this, like, that's the part of it that I can't deal with. Like, I don't enjoy that. I don't even tolerate it well, honestly. Like, I don't look at the production analysis. I don't know that I've maybe ever even looked at one, honestly. It causes panic attacks for me.
Why? Because everything's in a little box. So instead of saying we have to costume all the actors, it says we need a Batman costume for this guy.
I understand that it works for you, but it does not work for me.
What would work better for you?
Which is okay though, because she's the one doing this. It's just like this podcast. She's the one that's doing the majority of the lifting, and I just do the things that are technically complicated or physically complicated, or like in this production, we're gonna put a kid through a table. It's gonna be my kid. He's gonna go through a table.
I'm so excited.
He's pretty much. I think he might be as excited about the idea of doing it as she is just now. But I've been thinking about that for like 2 weeks probably. But I have literally no idea how we're gonna do the craft project thing that she was just talking about, and the idea that we have to have a bunch of those ready to go for 3 shows. I literally broke out into a sweat when she said that because I don't want to have to deal with that.
But you don't.
I know, but that's what I'm talking about. Is that, like, this is an aspect of this. When I said this is an aspect of the production of these shows that I don't really have a lot to do with. It's because I don't enjoy having this giant pile of stuff in front of me. Like, I don't know, enjoy is the right word, but I tolerate better the idea of, like, okay, this is the goal that we have for today and I need to do this. And this is the goal that we have for this and I need to do this. And this is the goal that we have to accomplish here. How are we going to do it? Like, that's much more the thing
crisis at a time.
That's much more the way that I work. Like, I I've said my whole life, mostly to my mother, who may or may not listen to this podcast, like I don't do well when it's like, I need you to clean all this up. Like, it's too much. I can't, I will work on something nonstop, but when I see a giant pile of things like that, it's hard for me to do. So like I said, like I tend to work on whatever the thing is that she's blocking at that moment, or whatever the thing is that's the next thing we need, or sometimes I just get real stompy when she's like telling me like, oh, we have to have a thing there right now, but it's not the thing that I was working on. So
This is the noise.
so I like to
make this noise.
yeah.
I
I
can't
like to
describe
act
it.
out for the kids where she's like, we have to have that door up right now. And I'll go grab a giant sledgehammer and literally hammer a nail in with a giant sledgehammer just so it makes as much noise as possible.
And the kids are like, we don't know how to feel about
Right.
it.
You know, sometimes you just have to keep people on their toes a little bit.
Oh my Lord.
But that, like, so that's why I do have a lot less to say about the production analysis, because it's not a thing that I really like dipping my toes in. And I'm glad that it works for her and Michaela and stuff like that, because it makes the show way better.
Thomas, well, and that's the thing. The kids are like responsible for our column. So Thomas is responsible for props, and Josie and Kier are going to do hair and making costumes, and Hayden's going to do lights, and Max is going to do sound. So the kids don't have to worry about the entire thing either. It's just a nice place where I can see. And then whenever a box turns green, I know that problem is solved. And this is a big problem I have seen with other people who are new to theater productions, or who maybe want to be the star of the show and not actually the producer director, is they want to take on everything themselves. I made all these costumes. I did all of this set. And that to me is exhausting. For number one, this isn't about me. And number two, I do not have that kind of talent or that many hours in a day. So the more I can farm out and give people responsibility, which is the point of this operation, the easier my life is, the happier they are, the faster we can get stuff done. It just works out incredibly well. So you cannot do everything yourself. And that means that you have to let go of control, and that some things are not going to come out exactly the way you wanted them to. They might come out different. They might come out better. If it's bad, you can say, no, this is not what we're looking for. We can fix it because this is in service of the show, not about your ego or my ego. But sometimes things happen and I think, well, that wasn't what I thought it was going to be, but I'm not mad. Like we're trying to make a poster of one of the comic book characters that's in the show, and she has a fin that doesn't know where it needs to come out of her body, and we cannot get that fixed. So I decided maybe today that since this is supposed to be taking place at a Comic-Con that's not like the fancy one out in LA, it's like one that might be held in a smaller city, like Bowling Green or something, that maybe it's okay that her fin, it does not make sense where it comes out of her body. And that might just be the thing. And so when kids see those posters, because it's be one of our posters in the halls for the show, they will stop and look at it and be like, where does that fin come from? And that's okay, because it's educational theater. This is not Broadway. That's not what we're doing. So sometimes, and also the great thing about live theater is at some point you have to let it go because the show is tomorrow and it is what it is. And not all the gags and bits that we're talking about now are going to come to fruition. They just aren't. And that's okay.
We've definitely had to have conversations about that before, like a day before the show, where it's like, no, Jennifer, like this thing is just not, it's not going to be able to go. Like,
Yeah.
it's, we can't pull the trigger on this. Like, I mean, I have a lot of ideas about how to do this table thing. Hopefully they work out.
But because you put wheels on it.
Why?
Because
the last thing you want is for the table to slide off from
roll.
underneath them.
I guess that's true. Maybe the wheels like are retractable.
Yeah. I don't know. We've had very rare instances where it's like, no, we just literally can't do that. Like, which is wild when you consider the fact that we have no heavy equipment. We have no ability to lift things. We have no ability to, like you see theater companies that have things that fly on stage and fly off the stage, or, have giant, like massive physical sets that spin on stage and stuff like that, or whatever. Like,
we can spin a house.
Yeah, we can spin a house.
We do have a massive 2-part house that can spin. It's 2 stories tall.
So, I mean, it's kind of cool, the amount of stuff. I'm always kind of perplexed by how sometimes we are able to do the things that we are able to do in a small theater that sort of got randomly put in the middle of our high school in a town that probably shouldn't have a theater as big as it is, and with little to no support from really anybody.
Yeah, they didn't really ask anybody who was doing theater when they put the space in, like what would be useful for us. I had just moved here, so I was not in a position to give advice to anybody. But I don't know, that's part of the fun, right?
Oh yeah,
Like
no,
we're scrappy underdogs and
well,
it's freaking magic.
yeah, it definitely is too, because I mean, it. One of the reasons that I keep my daytime job that I have is because a lot of days I'm not doing the same thing that I do the day before or 2 days ago or whatever. Sometimes, I spend weeks just rotating through various things and until I finally make it back to the first thing or whatever. And so that's one of the things that I like about this too, though, is that, you know, if she comes at me and says, I need a barrel that looks like it's on fire, but the barrel has to be moved around stage so there can't be any wires, then I have to sort of stretch a little bit in the way that I think about things to come up with a way to do that. And
Or I
so
would like a giant wizard who talks.
yeah.
Magical wizard.
We've done stuff like that. And it is actually kind of interesting for me because it gets me out of sometimes the ruts that I get into with what I do on a day-to-day basis. So you've talked about the production analysis and how you build that to some extent, and you sort of decompose the script into various cells in a spreadsheet, and then
Decomposed, interesting word to use there.
yeah, well, I mean that's kind of how I feel like it is that you take this whole thing and then you decompose it down into its various parts.
Or
Um,
deconstruct. That's a good word too.
then like you have your PR team or whatever that they're out.
Publicity
Yeah,
people.
they're out making stuff. How do you start ingesting this stuff like that from them? Like when a kid says, "Okay, I've made a flyer that we're gonna print out and do
Mhm.
this stuff." Like how are they? You talked about Google Classroom a little bit. Like how are you retrieving that stuff so that you end up where are you storing it? How are you putting it together so that you end up with this collection of materials so that you can go back and find it? Or
Oh, like from previous shows.
no, more like when this kid says, "I have this and it's done,"
Uh-huh.
then what happens to it?
Well, then we print it out and we just disseminate it out into the world, put it on walls everywhere. And we have big bulletin boards, good for us too. But yeah, we just put it out wherever people have it. Sometimes it gets out in the community, sometimes not. That's one thing we're not very good about. People say, "Oh, when's your show?" And I'll say, "It's over." And like, well, we didn't know. So we are not doing a great job right now with PR. I would say that is a weakness in our program, PR and fundraising. But like I've said, magic, we haven't had to fundraise, but we do need to do a better job of getting the information out in the community because right now we have, the signs at school, we have a Facebook page, and we have word of mouth. And oh, Instagram. We have Instagram.
So, okay, more physical things then. So you send a kid in to go find a walker. They
Uh,
find that walker.
uh,
Now, what is your process for what you do with this thing now that it has been acquired and brought in?
well, in Mary Poppins Land, the prop master took it after rehearsal and put it somewhere where they're collecting all the props. And I know he did come back in later. So I'm very lucky that I have a couple of students every period because I'm a librarian. After I teach my first period theater class, I'm a middle school, high school librarian the rest of the day. But I have independent study technical theater kids who are pretty much the crew chiefs, and they can work on theater stuff during that class period when they're with me. So he was collecting props earlier today. So I'm assuming he's got a space where he's storing all of those things. And then ultimately we'll have a table for those, but that is far from today.
Okay, so what about you go show shopping and you buy things you see, and then what do you do with them? How do you batch them together? How do you put
So
them?
we come back with all of our spoils, and usually a lot of the crew chiefs are with me, but then they take their things. Like every kid has a costume bag and this is on the schedule. What day the costume bags are due. On the schedule is also what days all the measurements for the actors are due, so we can find what we need. What other deadlines are there? Was when you have to get your lines memorized, but that's going into prompting. I think there's maybe only two deadlines like that because there's the deadline for props, costume sets, all the buy list to be done. And then they can go just put the things right in the kids' costume bags after they've tried them on and make sure they're they're good to go. So the crew chiefs are responsible for that. And mostly that works out okay. Sometimes we have problems with hair and makeup, I think only because those are very small things. And like I said, no one has enough storage. I've been backstage in major theaters in New York and London and in Germany, and nowhere did I find a space where I thought, oh, this is enough backstage storage for what you have. No one has enough space. There's always like, here's an idea for when things to go, but then stuff sort of like spilling out and just sitting around because we made this really cool thing and we didn't know what to do with it. So here it sits, you know.
Well,
Um,
and every space is occupied by human beings, and
right.
human beings predominantly are bad at putting things back up.
It's really, you know, because everything chaos, you know, everything's just spreads farther and farther out into the world. So we have to our hair and makeup people share their space with all of the hats and with all the pieces of material. It's amazing what you can do with the piece of material if you cannot afford to build a whole thing. It's amazing what a myriad of ills material will cover that can be clothing pieces, just straight pieces of material, or can cover set pieces and look like wallpaper. And a great thing about that is if you need to switch a wall really fast, you can Velcro that stuff and then yank it down and have the other wall behind it. Or just another piece of things you can Velcro up. And we've done that trick several times. So we have like a corner for hair and makeup and part of a bathroom. So, and that's an area that I don't know that much about because I don't use a lot of, well, any makeup products. So that's something that is left more to students than a lot of other things are because I got nothing. And those things are small and hard to lose. Every time you do a show, buy bobby pins. Buy bobby pins, buy duct tape, buy baby wipes by the case. Every time you do a show, you will use a case of baby wipes to take off makeup, to clean the floor, to clean other random things. Yes, anytime we do a show, I buy those three things religiously. Is that all I buy all the time? I can't think of anything else. But yeah, bobby pins, duct tape, and baby wipes. That's really what all shows are
Safety
made of.
pins, a lot of
Safety pins, always buy those because they're going to go missing. You could buy 5,000 safety pins off of Amazon, and by the time the show's over, you have 2 safety pins, and they're like the size of your pinky nail. They're not a useful size of safety pins. So yeah,
Now you're talking about, so we've talked about physical things, we've talked about PR items, like where now one of your other things is you got to have sounds and ideas about lights. So you've broken your production analysis down into sounds that you need and music that you need and types of music that you need. And then how are you collecting those? How are you gathering those artifacts to then go into the systems?
right. So we have a really nice light board system, and it's fabulous. It's everything is LED, and you can change the colors of the lights at the push of a button, whereas we used to have to go up and put gels in the lights that sometimes people would leave on for days at a time and they would burn holes in them. And the lights are much smaller and I won't burn my hands if I have to move them. That is one thing kids don't do is they don't get to move lights because they're up in the ceiling. We don't put kids up on ladders. That's unsafe. The sound cues, I have given my sound designer a bunch of ideas about what I need. Some in cases it's specific sounds that I know I want. The coolest sound cue I think we ever use is we did a production of Beauty and the Beast, not the Disney version. And in this version, there was like this arbor made of roses, and the beast would go and talk to it. And basically, the arbor was like, yo, you got to find somebody who loves you to marry you. And you have like a very limited amount of time because if you don't do hurry up and do it, then we're going to die. Like the servants and stuff had all become plants. They weren't like, bowls and plates and pianos and things. So, but they were all dying because he'd been alone for so long in the house when Beauty shows up. And we rigged it. We rigged an arbor. We actually took an arbor out of someone's yard and washed it, got all the mud off of it, and then covered it. Oh, fake plants. You should buy those at Goodwill. Anytime you can find fake shrubbery, especially ficus trees or roses or vines, buy them. You will use them a million times. Or buy giant sheets of shrubbery on Amazon. You will use that stuff. You will use it every single time. It's amazing. So we covered this arbor thing we had bought, this trellis thing, with roses and with Christmas lights first, and then roses, and then vines, and then we just had somebody, because this was before there were LED lights, somebody backstage where when the roses would start talking to him, they just plugged in the lights, and when they got done talking, they unplugged the lights, and that was the whole bit. But the roses, like, only he can understand that they're supposed to sing, And I could not find a sound that was appropriate for those roses to make this sort of like haunting melody I wanted. And finally, like 2 days before the show, I decided to use the children's chorus from Poltergeist. And it was, I mean, out of context, it was perfect. It's a bunch of little kids like, ah, you know, like that. And those kids were so young that they didn't know what it was. And a lot of the adults didn't either. Like people, like my husband was like, "Is that the Poltergeist song?" And I was like, "No, that's Rose's singing." But a lot of people didn't know what it was. But I was like, because that was something that had nothing to do with what we were doing, was not in the same genre, was not a takeoff on some other, wasn't something we got from some other version of this play. It was completely in the other realm. But I was like, "Oh no, this is the thing." So you never know when you can repurpose something like that. But and it went really well because I I did not have the kind of faith in that show that I should have. It was brought to me by a student director who I loved and adored and trusted, and she was going to graduate, and this was her last show, and I trusted her. But I was like, this whole story is just insane, and I don't know. And it was fantastic. That show was really, really good in a way that I thought it would not be. I think it's the first show we bought a bunch of stuff from Whittles for that show, all the material, because we covered all the house and greenery, and she had this big bed with this big canopy on it. It was really cool. So I've given the sound designer, here's all the cues when they have to happen. Here's vague ideas about what kind of music it is. And so go find these stuff. So he'll make a playlist, and then you will upload that to the computer in the sound box, and then magic will happen. Is that how that works? I don't know, because I have to do this. This is what you do. I look at the production analysis, and you make the sound cues come on. So is that how that works? So that's been much easier since the advent. Because when we first started doing it, we had it on a cassette tape because there was a cassette player in the back, and then we moved to CDs because there's one of those in the back in the little corner, and we started doing it on people's phones. But then if they lost their service or they got a notification, then that would happen. Or we do it on Spotify and then a commercial would come on or something. So now we were trying to use like sound cues off of YouTube videos. We had to switch back and forth between computers and people's phones and plug different things in. And then if there was a video cue, it was like, I don't even know how we got that stuff done. And we did it, but oh my God, it was stressful. It's much easier now.
So now we use a piece of free software called Multiplay. It's much easier for the sound designer to, like, it's more complex than maybe hitting play on a Spotify playlist, but it is much easier for the sound designer to utilize in a production system because it has the go button that takes you to the next cue, and you can rearrange your cues and stage things and fade
And
things.
also manipulate the
Yeah.
cues in a way we couldn't before. Because when we did trap last year, we had this really weird noise that happened sporadically, and then got louder and got cacophonous, and that was, Brent said that's the worst fight we ever had because he kept bringing me noises, and I was like, no, that's not quite right. But I couldn't make the noise that I wanted it to be. I just knew what it was in my head because I was like, what do you want?
Yeah, imagine someone telling you they need a weird noise, but not being able to describe it. And every time you give them a weird noise, they're like, no, that's not the weird noise I need.
But then you got it, and it was great.
Yeah. And then also, I need a weird noise. I don't know what the weird noise sounds like. I just know that that weird noise is wrong. Also, I need that weird noise. I kind of like that one, but I need you to make it happen like 500 times overlapping each other in a weird pattern. Oh,
Yes.
wait, no, I hate it like that.
Yes.
So it was a real fun time.
But then you made it work, and it was really creepy.
Yeah.
And it went really well.
And so using Multiplay, we actually can incorporate now the sound system more as like it's actually a lot easier for our sound designer to understand because it sits opposite in the sound booth the light system. And so when a sound designer walks in, the person that's been our light goddess, as Jennifer says most of the
Yes.
time, can actually sort of like explain to them how cues work in a system, because most people don't really interact with okay, I want to line all these things up and then hit go and go and go and stop and go and whatever like that. They don't really understand it. But our light designer is like, oh yeah, no, you cue these things the way they need to be. our stage manager is going to call them out when you need to cue them off and stuff like that. And so it's a more intuitive system for the people that already know how a cue system works. And then Multiplay has now integrated the ability to kick off videos as well. So what's the most recent one? Singing in the Rain.
Singing in the Rain, yes.
Yeah, we used it for that, where we kicked off pre-recorded videos and stuff like that. So that was a new one. That was a new one for us as well. And Multiplay is an open source program, not funded by a giant company. So, every now and then there's a glitch in it and you got to be like, oh, wait, no, that's not how that's supposed to work. So, but it comes for the low price of free, which is pretty nice for our way of working with things. Like Multiplay was just me in my spare time being like, okay, there's got to be a way to do this better. And some of the lighting effects that we did in Midsummer were me building
when the lights went out in the house,
building controllers and stuff like that, because
so cool.
It was like, okay, there has to be a way to do this. But that's not an aspect that Jennifer's really great at. And I like to make weird stuff, so it works out that way.
And I feel the same way about that stuff, the way you feel about the production analysis. As I'm just like, so I said during Midsummer, I would like the lights in the house to go off in rows and go donk, 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 donk. Like they're, like it's scary and terrifying, and they end up in the dark at the end. And it really was like the audience was like looking around like what's happening when that started happening. But I didn't know how to make that happen. I just made those noises at Brent, and he was like, okay. And then he made that work. So production analysis is great, and I love it. It's my best friend. But then these other things like the sound stuff and whatever, I don't have to worry about that. And I think we try more technically advanced things because that's something that you are better at than me. And I can be like, here. That's why you get your own color on the production analysis.
Yeah.
Called Orange, Brent's Problem.
Oh, I like orange.
Good, because that's your color. Michaela said so.
I would know that if I ever looked at the production analysis.
It's too scary for you.
And, like you said, in the production analysis, it turns up green, and that means it's done. But then, wait, where is it? Where is that at? Like, okay, we did that, and it's somewhere, but so I know that at different times we've made prop boxes, and we've collected props in those. Yeah. Like, we've made prop tables.
We almost always have prop tables.
Right. And costume bags are good. But then sometimes it's like, listen, I just need to see every different picnic hat, or whatever.
Right.
And like we pull that stuff out and we kind of look at it and then we go, okay, this is the one we want. And, and then we try to funnel it into a costume bag.
What is a picnic hat?
I was thinking the big floofy ones that like a shade hats.
Okay. Like a summer hat, like a straw hat.
Okay. Well, but that's also it sometimes too. Like the other day you told some of our older kids, I need you to go find me a pirate hat. And they vanished off and came back with a tricorner hat, which was not a pirate hat, but could be a pirate hat.
It's the most pirate hat they could find.
Right. And so sometimes it's not about what it is, it's about what it feels like it is.
Or what you convince the audience that it is.
Right, exactly.
Is it a bed sheet or is it a toga?
Right.
Right.
And one thing that she was talking about, you should buy ghillie suits.
Yeah, those have been very useful.
Ghillie suits turn into mossy covered rocks. They turn into ways to hide places that actors go in and out.
And those aren't even the suits. Like we have a couple suits that we're used to, but just the ghillie material, which is the stuff that I didn't know that's called this. It's the stuff that like hunters might use to cover over a blind if they're making a duck blind or something like that, or a deer stand, so it kind of blends in with the shrubbery so the woodland creatures don't see them. And that stuff is infinitely, I mean that's good money. That was good money. Any kind of greenery, man. You can just
because you can instantly make something look like it's been there for a long time.
Yeah.
We paper machéd a cave onto the front of one of our rolly houses. And then
Thumper did that. Thumper came and helped us do that.
And then threw ghillie soup or ghillie material all over it, and ta-da, a super old cave that's been there forever.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of stuff like that. But so having the staples, that's one of the things that Jennifer's good at in the production analysis, is that when she decomposes things down into their smaller parts, she'll be like, oh, yeah, I can make this out of that because I know we have that.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of stuff that when the production analysis is being built, she can just be excuse me, she can just be like, yeah, that's already done. That's already done. That's already done. That's already done. I know we have these chairs. I know we have these tables. I know we have the screenery. I know we have this thing. And basically we just have to send the kids in there and be like, hey, go find these various things and pull them.
Benches. We use those
You know,
benches. They're benches.
yeah. You have to be careful with that one.
But that's from, 20 years of building up stuff. So if you're just getting started, you're going to have to do a lot more borrowing from other places. But think about stairs. Like we've got 2 sets of stairs that are, as old as Ian. And the tall set piece that's like the 2-story one, and those 2 long walls, we've had those for more than a decade. So that's, what if you come into a space that somebody's already started, you want to take time to go through and inventory what they have, because there's no list on paper. I know there are theater programs, I've read about this, where they barcode everything and catalog everything. I don't know if that would do me any good because we still have to figure out where the thing is.
So to go back, like I think that is a thing that Jennifer does really well, where she is able to nudge the production analysis into a direction, because she knows, well, these are things that we already have, and so I can use that to make this other thing. And she was talking about props and set pieces that we have that have been around for 10 years. Just as an aside, some of our set pieces, if you took a knife and scored the paint on them, there's easily 10 to 15 to 20 to 30 layers of paint on them. Because everything gets repainted almost every show if it's in a show.
No, here's a pro tip. If you go to Lowe's, and this may be true of other home improvement places, but our school we can use purchase orders at Lowe's, so I shop there quite a bit. And there's always a kid from drama who works there, it seems like, or who used to be in drama. They have a big shelf near the paint section of paint that somebody ordered and decided they didn't want or whatever. And I mean, one time I bought 20 gallons of white paint. We've been using that stuff for years because you can use it to mix other things or whatever. It was supposed to be like for parking lots, I think, or whatever, but it doesn't matter. Like you can use, because they're like, what kind of paint do you want if I have a color? I'm like, what is the cheapest paint it will sell me? Because that literally, the quality of the paint is immaterial. I will use this for 2 months and then I will cover something else. But yeah, you're right. Like those houses probably weigh a good 5 pounds more than they did when we built them because of the layers of paint that are on them and the spinny walls.
Yeah. So when we have one of those Saturday rehearsals that she was talking about, there'll be 6 kids show up, and the first thing you tell them to do is go put different clothes on. And then you hand them whatever paintbrush they can hold, and you just start going, make that black, make that brown, turn that green.
Yeah.
And they, we had one kid that just painted their hand every time, but also they painted the set, And
you get drop cloths, all the drop cloths.
And so,
which are old flat sheets, because flat sheets are not useful on beds, but very useful in theater.
Right. So we have a lot of that kind of stuff, 5 kids with 3-inch house brushes, just literally sitting there repainting a set that was brown, that was black, that was brown, that was black, that was brown, that was black, but we need it to be brown this time.
And it's okay because it has to be theater good. And because we have proscenium stage, the audience is not close to the action at all. There's an apron in front of them and then floor space and audience. So you can go look up close at our theater set pieces and be like, that's a little sketchy, but from the audience, it looks just fine. Like we may not have the most money in the world and we have the most talented people we know, but I mean, are we all going to Broadway? Clearly not. But we hold ourselves to professional standards as much as we can in terms of we want to give our audience the best show ever. Not like, well, we're a bunch of kids out here in the middle of nowhere, so it doesn't matter if this is any good or not. We are doing our best to provide quality entertainment to people. And I think, I don't know, we're the best educational theater program in Edmonson County. So
that we know of.
But surely if there was another education.
What if there was like an even more rogue underdog? What if there was an even more, behind the scenes, even underground educational theater?
They performed in the cave.
Yeah, what? And we just did not know about it.
But I Digress is a
We've snatched
production.